Bruce. Hi, I'm Bill Wolf, Associate Professor of Writing Arts at Rowan University in New Jersey, and this is Baby We Were Born to Tweet, Springsteen concert tweets, and an emergent transmediated composing community. This was first presented at the Computers and Writing Conference at Frostburg State University in Maryland on June 9th, 2013, in session K1. This is not going to be the exact talk that I gave. There was a typo in one of the slides, and I moved a couple around after presenting. That made more sense that way. Also, it wasn't transcribed, or I didn't have a paper I was reading off of, so I might say a few things differently. Also, it seems to be raining on and off, so I hope you don't hear that too much. This talk is going to be about a large-scale study I'm doing on Springsteen fans on Twitter, and my goals for the talk are to introduce the way that I'm archiving the tweets that I'm using, to discuss the way that I've approached the data, and start to analyze the data, to offer some thoughts on what I'm finding, and then to think very briefly about how it might be used in class. So I started archiving tweets back in February 2012. Since that time, I have archived 1.89 million or so Springsteen tweets. I've been doing that using an application called Your Twapper Keeper by John O'Brien. This is the successor to Twapper Keeper, which he created some time ago. And what this does is it provides you with the opportunity to search for a keyword or hashtag and archive those tweets on a server that you have set up. And the instructions you can see are links to those instructions on your screen. And it's a quite robust space. You can see it's allowed me to archive over almost 2 million tweets, probably that many combined with all the other searches I'm doing. And it's a wonderful application for those of you who, like myself, don't know advanced programming languages and cannot just create your own scripts to begin to archive tweets. I'm also using an application created by Martin Hoxie called Tags 5.0, and that stands for Twitter Archive Google Spreadsheet. And you can get setup instructions via this link. Like the name implies, you set this up in a Google Doc, and it saves an archive to your Google spreadsheet. So it's very much like an Excel document, and eventually you'd have to export that to Excel to be able to work with the data. Martin does visualizations and studies visualizations of Twitter archives, so he's created all sorts of nice visualizations that work quite well with his own, with Tags 5.0. This last one I'm showing is something called Tags Explorer, where you actually can visualize tweets and the relationships among tweets. This is one for Bruce and Oz that I archived while Bruce was in Australia, and you can see it's a nice small community. This archive, I think, is great for archiving your own tweets, archiving smaller communities, hashtags like your own class, and if you're using a small data set, then this is the way to go, especially because the visualizations are right there. But once you do have your archive, and you will then be confronted with the question about what to do with this data. How do I make sense of it? What am I supposed to do with all this stuff? What are all these different columns that I'm actually seeing? For example, the time that is provided by Twitter is in Unix time, and Unix time is by the second from every second from January 1st, 1970. You'll have to convert that to regular time in order to break things down by time if you want to do that. Also, depending on the search term that you're using, things might show up that you're not expecting, and things might be missing that you might expect to actually be there. So, for example, for Springsteen, if I'm searching the word Springsteen, I do begin to see all these tweets that Springsteen are like, oh my God, I got amazing seats, freaking out, Bruce Springsteen, here we come. At the Springsteen concert with my friends, we get many tweets, this kind of stuff. There are also those few people out there who we won't mention who don't like Bruce Springsteen, and I guess we're just going to have to get over it. But showing up in the data set also were all these tweets about this song called Springsteen by this guy named Eric Church, who I'd never heard of, and I've never heard of the song Springsteen. And there are thousands and thousands of these tweets in here. Also in there are tweets that are from the song 1985 by Bowling for Soup, Springsteen, Madonna, way before Nirvana. Here was U2, Blondie, and Music Still on MTV. So they're also in here. That's a tweet that seems popular when people reach 1,985. So you're also going to need to figure out, or I need to figure out, to constrain the data so that I'd have a reasonable amount to be able to analyze. You can't analyze a million tweets. And also to make the file sizes small enough so that the Excel can open them. You'll be downloading perhaps 25,000 tweets, and this can take a long time for Excel to render. And I recommend using the .xlsb file format. It seems to shrink the file formats down in such a way that it allows for easier opening later times. When I've had 25,000 or more tweets in a particular file on my iMac, I had to open it overnight. I had to turn off everything else on the computer and just let it process and think about it and open overnight. So I've decided to constrain my data to the to concert tweets. And the reason why I'm doing this is primarily, or at first, is because there was a study published by Oxford University Press in 1999 by David Cavici about Springsteen concert fans. And I saw this as a nice connection to that lineage. Also, it gives me a nice space where I know that people will be tweeting about Springsteen in response to a specific event, which I think is useful. So it helps constrain the data. So I've decided that for this study that I'm going to be the case study I'll be discussing today is the April 4th concert in East Rutherford, New Jersey, at the Izod Center, which has start time 8:23, end time 10:58. The corpus is from 5 p.m. the night before the concert starts, all the way through 9 a.m. essentially the following day. And I wanted to be able to see if tweets were different before the concert, during the concert, and after the concert, if we saw some sort of continuation. So there were, from April 4th to beginning of the day April 4th to the end of the day April 5th, there were 14,000 tweets that I had to go through, and I broke them. From that I extracted the tweets just from that time period, 5 p.m. the 4th to 9 a.m. the 5th, and there were 4,200 total tweets from 3,436 unique accounts. So most people are tweeting only once. Of those 4,200 tweets, 2,900 were about Bruce Springsteen in some way. So over 1,000 of those tweets were about Eric Church or somebody else. And of those 2,900 tweets, 700 were directly related to the concert, either about activities before, during, or after the concert during that particular time period. So once you have your corpus, once you have your data set, the question becomes, how do you analyze it? Now, it's very important that you don't bring theories or apply theory to the data. You want the data to speak for itself. So after doing some reading and talking with people like colleagues Krista Teston and Vincent Rhodes, who were extraordinarily helpful with the study, I decided to use grounded theory. This is a recursive method of analyzing text, so meaning merges from the data itself. And what's quite nice is that it removes bias. You're not applying a specific theory to this because you want that theory to be shown. You're looking to see what's happening in there itself. So with grounded theory, we have a unit of analysis. Unit of analysis can be any text. It can be a blog post. It can be an interview transcript. It could be an image. Here we have one tweet. So we've got this one tweet. I've been going to Springsteen shows for 20 years, and I've been waiting to hear my favorite song tonight. He played Racing in the Streets. So, and this, what I'm going to describe here is how we started breaking down the data even before we broke it into the 700 for the concert tweets. So I started looking through the data to see what was going on. My research assistants and I should give a shout out to them, Jess Landolfi and Devin Walter, who are excellent. And so we see at Springsteen, we see which is a kind of an at reply, I thought, a song title, it's a post-concert tweet. And so using this kind of method, 48 categories emerged of what we were seeing in the tweets themselves. And soon later after that, I realized that this is not actually grounded theory. What I was doing here was basically cataloging things that we were seeing in the tweets themselves, or what tweets were linking to. This is not specifically grounded theory. Grounded theory, it seems to me, is more about the intentionality of the author. So here we broke, now that we had all that information, and all that information isn't worthless because now I could go and find a video very quickly. It also helped breaking down this to the concert tweets and help us getting an understanding of all the data. But for the unit of analysis now, with grounded theory, we're looking for the intentionality of the author. And so with the open coding phase, I broke things down into two degrees: primary and secondary codes. And the primary code is really the primary intent of the author, what I'm seeing as the primary intent of the author. This tweet shows the author historicizing their relationship with Springsteen. They are locating this event within the history of their fandom and in their history of going to the particular show. So the category, or the code would be historicizing. We also see notifying with the @Springsteen. Now, nobody expects Springsteen to reply. Springsteen himself is not on Twitter, as far as we know. The @Springsteen account is run by an intern. So this notifying is very different than conversing with somebody. There's not a conversational goal here. They're just notifying somebody that they're being mentioned in the tweet themselves. And in this case, it's kind of working like a hashtag, but that's another idea altogether. Intertextuality, I think, is happening here. In order to fully understand the importance of the playing of Racing in the Street, you also need to understand the history of that song being played. It's not that this person has just been unlucky going to 20 years of Springsteen shows. It's also that this song was not played all that often before this tour. So there's an intertextuality there because you're required to have an understanding of texts outside of this tweet. And those texts would be the set lists from the prior tweets. And perpetuating. There is a mythology about Bruce Springsteen. He's 60 some odd years old. He plays shows that last 25 hours, 5 hours long, and he's going to chug beers, and he's going to crowd surf, and he's just going to go on and on and on, and everybody else is going to be exhausted, and he could still go on for another hour. There's another mythology is that when you go to a Springsteen show, you are going to have an intimate connection with either him or the music, or something transformative could happen. And here we see this taking place. Finally having that moment of hearing that particular song. So that's perpetuating a mythology. So from this round of coding, we found that there were 16 codes that emerged from the data. Affiliating, which are like conversing, critiquing, emerging, which I'm going to have to change. This is more the spontaneous overflow of powerful emotion. So maybe I'll call this Wordsworthian from his preface to Lyrical Ballads, or where that phrase comes from, the spontaneous overflow of powerful emotion, or just overflowing. There's an emotional response going on in a lot of these tweets. Historicizing, integrating, intertextuality, locating, and so on, phatic, reporting, tummeling. This is Brian McNally's word, or one that he's adopted to use for retweeting, and then yearning, people who really want to be at the concert but cannot. So, and from this data, you can do all sorts of fun things. You can make tables like we have here, which reveal a lot about what's going on in the data. 35% of the people are narrating their experiences. They're telling their story of the event while it's going on. And we see that that's happening pretty consistently throughout the concert. We see affiliating. These are hashtags. And those are never the primary goal of a tweet. They're there and they're used, but the goal is not, it seems to be, to affiliate. It's a secondary kind of goal. We see locating, for example. These are Foursquare type posts where people are locating themselves in a particular place, and most of that is happening beforehand. We see retweeting or tummeling happening quite a bit. 23% of the tweets have tummeling as part of them. And those are primarily, those are primary goals. That's the goal of a tweet, is primarily to do that tumbling or retweeting or facilitating the conversation. We see that happening quite a bit. Mediating. 20% of the tweets are mediating or remediating, whether including Instagrams or TwitPics or links to blog posts. They have that. So the data here is telling us some interesting stuff. You can also see, you can make tables about this. You can look at set lists to see which songs are being tweeted or discussed the most. And here the ones in all caps are tour premieres, and you can see that those are being tweeted the most often. Trapped, which is quite a bit also, is a huge fan favorite. You can also create Wordles to see what people are discussing the most. You can create, using Tag Explorer, you can create nice visuals to see what it all looks like. And if you think about it a little bit, you might even see that it does start to look like a concert itself, which is really neat. But you also need to step back a bit, because you can be playing with this data all day long and making these visuals. But as Franco Moretti points out, quantitative research provides data, not interpretation. It can tell us things, but where the significant turning points lie must be decided on a different basis. And Moretti uses socio-historical, socio-political analyses to help understand and contextualize the graphics that he uses or that he creates in his book. And so too, we need to recognize that it's very easy to get lost in the data or in the tweets as we view them on the screen. Several years after perhaps several years after they were actually tweeted. But we need to recognize that these tweets were composed in praxis. They were composed in response to and at, or many of them, a specific event. And these are ones with TwitPics, several of them from the corpus. So these tweets, we need to, when you're understanding your data, you need to think about what is the context in which these things were written. And then what does that help us understand about the data itself? So what it's starting to show to me is that the concert itself is being revealed as a distributed genre ecology, where we see multiple genres at work together in this one particular space. And these genres, the things that happen in the space itself, lead to the creation of other genres. New genres also impact the resulting, impact future concerts, because fans will have read them, they'll see them, and they'll go in and expect different things going into the concert. Maybe they'll create a different sign or so on. So a transformative relationship. But these tweets also, it seems to me, exist within a larger ecology of the texts themselves about and by Springsteen. And it's not just the music. The music gives us one level, but we need to dig down deeper into past the music to what has been written about Springsteen, the critiques, the blog posts, the wiki spaces, the setlist archives, all those kinds of spaces. And even further down from the scholarly work that's being done in the biographies, we need to look to the fan utterances. And those are where we have a lot of the blog posts and the wiki spaces. Here, these are the zines that were written. And Springsteen has a robust fan composition community. The first Springsteen fanzine was 1977. You can see we have cookbooks from the East Street Nation. We've got fan comics that are being created. And all of these exist within this robust genre ecology, the ones in the concert itself, the tweets, and these themselves. So I think what is happening is that concert tweets exist within an ecology of composition. The ecology of composition is a phrase coined by Margaret Syverson in her book, The Wealth of Reality and Ecology of Composition, and she is informed by Holland's 1992 piece on complex adaptive systems, which he argues involves shows sign of evolution, aggregate behavior, and anticipation, which we certainly see in the concerts. But also but for ecology of composition has distribution, emergence, embodiment, and action. So for example, just a very quick example, the distribution, emergence, embodiment, and action walk into a concert. So we can imagine Springsteen creating his set list, which he does by hand every day, and then, for every concert, and then we have a fan with a sign. He or she composes this sign outside the concert. They both go inside the concert, Springsteen on the stage, the fan, luckily enough, gets into the front row or very close in the pit, and it can hold up the sign. Springsteen sees the sign, takes the sign, and the fan goes berserk. Really, starts going nuts. Springsteen alters the set list, the preset set list. So the genre of the set list is changed. Tells the musicians that we're going to be, the E Street Band members, that he's going to be changing the set list. This fan is still going nuts. Springsteen holds the sign up to the crowd so everybody can see what is going to be played. Springsteen sings the song. Someone at the stadium tweets the set list change, or someone blogs of the set list, as we've got a sign request, which results in retweets, blog posts, reviews, updates to the wiki, etc. So we see this distribution, emergence, embodiment, and action happening. So this leads us to the question of whether or not tweets are individual utterances, or individualistic utterances, as they're often called. And I really don't believe the data supports that idea. Rather, what we're seeing are nuanced writings that exist within distributed and transmediated ecologies of composition, genres, and artifacts. The tweets themselves are necessitating the need to explore other materials. For example, while I did have a large Springsteen CD and record collection, prior to starting this study, I did not have all those books about Springsteen. I did not have all those fanzines about Springsteen. What was necessary for me to be able to fully understand these tweets was for me to be able to get those additional texts. And those texts helped my understanding of the fans and of the tweets themselves. So what I think is happening is that a study of community-based tweets is a study of the history of the community itself, including their spaces, texts, and artifacts. The tweets themselves, while they do exist in isolation on our computer screen in Excel, are really a part of a larger ecology of texts. And to be able to fully understand and code the text, the tweets, we need to understand that larger ecology, and we need to be able to explore that particular ecology. And one of the reasons I think that this can make for an exciting research project for students is not only will they learn to archive tweets and to do some data analysis, is that it will ask them to go explore the texts related to the community in which they are studying. Either going and studying it in situ by going to a specific space, or going and doing archival research, primary document research, exploring blog posts, scholarship about a particular community. So I think this could provide students with rich and nuanced and really enjoyable research experiences. So I'm well over the time that I went during the conference. I have no idea how that happened. But I want to thank you for listening. If you have any questions or thoughts, please tweet me at Bill Wolf, or you can email me at wolfw@rowan.edu. Again, thanks for listening. Have a great day.